Hey everybody, I'm Pastor Bill from Open Door Baptist Church in Morehead City, and thanks for coming back for another word of encouragement. These are weekday videos that we're producing to help everyone to get our ears off of the messaging of the world for just a moment, hopefully in our morning, and to put our ears back down onto God's words, God's holy words of encouragement in the Bible. And in these days of 2021, we have been taking passages from our E100 reading plan. So if you're following along with the church in the E100 reading plan, then these are all passages that you have read up until this point. Today, we are going to pick up right where we left off from yesterday. Yesterday, we covered the passage where we see Jacob wrestling with God, some mysterious manifestation of God coming to meet Jacob in his weakness and dealing gently with him as he wrestles with some physical manifestation of God. And today, in the very next chapter, directly after that event, while Jacob is now walking with a limp, we pick up in the story of Jacob and Esau, his angry brother, where Jacob is approaching Esau. And at this point, we pick up here in verse 3 of chapter 33. We read that Jacob went to Esau, bowing himself to the ground 7 times until he came near to his brother. But Esau ran to meet him. Now, at this point, the reader should have some sense of almost apprehension or tension. What is Esau going to do when he gets near him? Will he draw his sword? But instead, here's what we read. He runs to meet him and embraces him and fell on his neck and kissed him, and they wept. And when Esau lifted up his eyes and saw the women and children, he said, "Who are these with you?" And Jacob said, "These are the children whom God has graciously given me, your servant." Now, we're going to pause just there. That was verse 5. And let me push the pause button just to say that yesterday I made an assertion that Jacob's meeting and wrestling with God was the life-changing event of Jacob's entire existence. As a matter of fact, up until that point, even though God has come to Jacob and has renewed the promise of Abraham, Jacob seems to continually have an if in their relationship. If God, you will do these things, then at that point I will worship you and you will be my God if you will continue to take care of me in this way. But it's after his wrestling with God that Jacob is then truthful about his identity, and God touches Jacob and gives a physical sign of the spiritual change. And here it is. We see it now, my assertion from yesterday, playing out in evidence. The first of which is that Jacob says that these children are those whom God has graciously given him. It's no longer he who has produced these children. And then, as a matter of fact, we will skip ahead to verse 8, and we see that Esau asks Jacob, "What do you mean by all of this company that you sent to meet me?" And Jacob answered, "To find favor in the sight of my Lord." And the word favor is actually very closely associated with the word grace, that God, in his grace, gave Jacob children, all of these children, and he now is turning to find favor in the sight of Esau. And so, sure enough, in verse 10, Jacob says again, "No, please, if I have found favor in your sight, then accept my gift from my hand." And again, in verse 11, he says, "Please accept my blessing that is brought to you because God has dealt graciously with me." And then again in verse 15, we read Esau saying, "Let me leave with you some of the people who are with me." But Jacob said to him, "What need is there? Let me find favor in the sight of my Lord." Jacob, at this point, has been touched by God, and we see the evidence not only physically in the limp that he now has, but also spiritually in that Jacob's attention and focus is now not on what he is doing and gaining and achieving and working, but on what God has graciously given him, including a restored relationship with his brother, with whom he now finds favor. Oh, may this grace, may this same grace of God now touch and affect and change you. May you now walk with the limp of grace your entire life.